Well, hello again. It's Lee Kreider, producer of the High Ram Show here in Dayton, Ohio. And while I was in my medical hiatus, I was thinking about some things I would like to do. And one of them was revisit some of the friends I've made over the years here on the show and get caught up with them. And so that's what we're doing today. And it's a privilege to bring back with us once again Steve Berveling there in Sydney, Australia. Hi, Steve. How are you?
G'day. Nice to be here. Happy to be here with you, Lee. Thank you.
And believe it or not, you were on show number 5. That's
Five.
far back when I hadn't a clue as to what I was doing. But I
But
just
we had a
I
lot
knew
of
I
fun.
had a lot of fun. I knew I wanted to do something, and you were a special guest at that time, and we appreciate it a lot.
Thank you.
Stephen, before we go any further, a topic of conversation everywhere I go around here these days, of course, are the fires in Australia. How have they impacted you? And some people seem to think, oh, they've had rain, they've been put out, but I don't think that's true, is it?
No, the fires are still burning. They're not as severe as they were in December or between the Christmas and New Year break. But even over the last weekend, which was the first weekend in February, we had major fires in southern New South Wales, and I think we lost about a dozen or 2 dozen houses, even now. That's at the same time that here in Sydney, which is about 400 miles north of the border with the southern border of New South Wales. We've had an awful lot of rain in the last 24 hours, but it has not been sufficient to dampen all the fires right throughout the country.
And has it affected air quality in your area?
It has been extraordinary at times, mainly in November and December, when the air quality here in Sydney was amongst the worst in the world, for a few days here, a few days there. And there were big recommendations to not go out and train outside. So
yeah, I was wondering about that because one thing about cyclists, they consume a lot of air, don't they? And whatever's in it, they get.
breathing is good.
Breathing is a good thing. Well, having had some very serious problems with breathing, I became keenly aware of how good it was. Well, the last time I think we chatted on air, you were actually in hospital and just had surgery. And let's just say by way of that, Stephen, you are a Race Across America veteran. We'll get into that in a little bit here. But you were planning on coming and riding, I believe you're going to try to ride Race Across America solo. And then you had an encounter with a road train, one of those big long things you got over there.
Yes. They are similar but longer than triple trailers. And what happened was I was doing a training race from Perth to the Southern Ocean, Albany, and back, which was a 1,200 kilometer race. And on day 3.5, one of these road trains came past me and blew me away. It transpired that he was about 60 centimeters or 2 feet away from me, and he was doing 110 kilometers per hour, and I was doing 31. So you can imagine that the air turbulence just blew me completely away, and I was off work for 6 months. I was in hospital for 6 weeks. I broke my femur, my left femur, my collarbone, various ribs. I injured my brain, and it was the brain thing that really stopped me from going to work for some time. What that then did thereafter was that it exacerbated a problem with my right knee, which I'd previously damaged. And now I have a total knee replacement on the right knee. And then from the triple trailer road train accident, I have a lot of metal on the left side of my body. So I beep whenever I go to any airport.
You have to carry a card, I suspect.
That's right.
Yeah, tell them you're there. Go over your race across America history just briefly and kind of fill people in to what all is you've been involved in.
Thank you. We first came to do the race across America as Team for HIV Hope in 2011. It was in, I think, late 2009 or 2010 that people with HIV could actually enter the United States. And that then enabled us to do the race. And we did that, as I say, first in 2011. And then we did it again in 2012 when we were very lucky to win our division, which was really nice. I sought to do solo in 2013, but had a very bad injury on a training ride here in Sydney and broke some vertebrae. So that put me off doing that. But we raced again I raced again as part of the team with the Twisted Swisters in 2014. And of course, that's with Philippe May, who is doing an awful lot of work trying to get their solo as well. Then thereafter, I've also done, I worked at Oceanside at the start a few times, both in 2015, despite the injury that I'd had with the road train. I'm sorry, that's not right. I tried to do Raw in 2015, and I could sit on my bike and I could ride my bike, but I remember sitting at the hall in Oceanside at the beach, the night before the race starts, and all the solo racers are allowed to come up to the front and get introduced, and I would walk up the front with my walking stick, which wasn't a good look, but hey, once I was on the bike, it was okay, Unfortunately, I DNF'd in Montezuma Cortez because of a very bad eye injury, and I temporarily lost my eyesight. Now, I had previously lost my eyesight for 12 months, so I know the ramifications of losing my eyesight, and I wasn't going to take that risk at all. So we stopped at the hospital in Cortez, unfortunately. Then in 2016, I helped out at the start in Oceanside and had a lot of fun then. I did Raw solo again in 2017. But that wasn't a really good event for me. We had some real gastro problems right at the beginning. We had some issues with Sherma's neck very early, and unfortunately, I DNF'd at Salome. Is that how you say it? At Time Station 5, anyway.
Yeah.
So that didn't work either. And that's life. But I came back in 2018 to help again at the start, and I have no doubt that you'll see me again.
Well, that would be good.
Thank you.
I remember meeting you on a rainy day there in Blanchester, where you were experimenting with a new rain suit, but it wasn't raining quite enough to
That's right. Yeah.
to use it. Yeah. So good. So of course, a part of your mission, Stephen, and we've talked about this before, is to be a model, if you will. Maybe you've got a better way of explaining it, of what it means to have be positive for HIV and what it is possible to do these days. And perhaps you could share with me how that's developing. I understand there's some new treatments, there's better treatments all the time, and kind of fill us in about that, Stephen.
Thank you, Lee. I appreciate that. And the great summary of all that is that I am unable to transmit HIV despite being HIV positive.
Oh, okay.
The new medication is so good that I cannot transmit. Secondly, there is further new medication that stops the virus from coming into a person. It's a bit like the female contraceptive pill. So we've got medication for HIV positive people like me that make the virus so undetectable that I cannot transmit. And B, we've got medication for people who might be considered at risk to stop them from catching the virus. And collectively, those two mechanisms, together with the traditional mechanisms, are so successful that all organizations, including the World Health Organization, United Nations, AIDS, and so forth, we are on a path to eradicate HIV transmission. Will keep me alive, but given I can't transmit, that's really good, and we're looking at doing that within this decade.
Well,
that's a huge step forward.
Yeah, that's wonderful news.
Yeah,
And so one other rather important event happened in your life since we last talked, I think, didn't it? Tell me about that.
I was very, very fortunate, thank you, Lee, and it was 2 years ago to yesterday, or Sunday, so it's 2 years ago, your day today, that I got married. And we finally were able to do that here in Australia. Brian and I got married on the day before the 29th anniversary that we had met. And we had a ceremony of commitment in January 1992. So that's quite some time ago. And then we get married on the 2nd of February 2018. And we used the same words that we had used in 1992 because, hey, they seem to be working all right. So, why rock that boat?
Don't knock what's working, huh? Very good. Well,
thank you, Matt. I'm sorry I'm interrupting, but what was really interesting was despite the length of time that we had been together, and despite the fact that we are so much a couple, once we got married, and about 6 months later, we both articulated that we had absolutely no idea what we had been missing out on, despite the domesticity of our relationship. Such is the strength of the institution that we're now able to share.
Well, that's interesting because I think those of us who haven't experienced that kind of thing, you say, well, why bother after all these years, And so I appreciate you expanding on that a little bit, because I think those of us who have been married a long time kind of take it for granted, maybe.
The other thing that we did not anticipate that at all, but we got married because when I was in hospital in Perth after the road train, the hospital absolutely refused to talk to Brian. Would not give him any information because they said he's not family. And as a result of that, well, we now say, well, that's okay because we're married. But at the same time, I carry this very small USB stick with me all the time. And I also have one on the keys that I have when I ride my bike, which includes my marriage certificate, just in case anybody wants to dispute it. Now, I don't think that there are many heterosexual couples that even contemplate the need for that, but it's just one of those factors that, in the next few years, I may well not need to do that. But in the meantime, we just make sure that if there is an argument, here's the answer. Thank you very much.
Well, congratulations, although it's 2 years later. And I think I did congratulate you at the time. I must say the photograph of the two of you, you're a handsome couple. That's all I can say.
Oh, you're very kind.
Yeah. And we're so glad that that was able to happen. We've made changes here in the United States as well, and we're happy for that. But you haven't, you still got some cycling activity and have had some success. Tell us a little about that.
Thank you. I should first indicate that I've made the decision to not do the ultra endurance cycling. And part of that is I've now got married And gee, I now have responsibilities as if I didn't have them before. But it was a reason. And the other reason was that we had some litigation in as a result of the road train accident. And I can tell you that paragraph 274 of the judgment reads as follows. And this is what the judge said. At this point in time, comma, the plaintiff, that's me, was literally cycling for his life. Full stop, new paragraph. And for a judge to say it so bluntly, and being a lawyer myself, I got the hint. What everybody had been screaming at me, the judge basically slammed into me, and I'm very grateful for her. So that has, excuse me, that has meant that I'm not doing the ultra endurance cycling, but boy, do I sit on a bike and I love it. And what I've been doing instead is I've been doing a lot of work both on my time trial bike, but more importantly, on a track pursuit bike. And I've been pursuing the hour record for my age group, I hasten to add, but the hour record has been quite an extraordinary phenomenon. And in June last year, I was very fortunate to be able to achieve and obtain the Australian record for my master's age group in the hour record. I did that in Brisbane 2019. And might I be so bold as to say that my national record was the first national or higher record in any sport in any country since 1992 by a person known to be living with HIV, which means that we've broken the drought. The last person who did one was the Olympic gold medals that Magic Johnson and the Dream Team got in Barcelona Olympics. And after that, there have been no Olympic records, no national records, no nothing in any sport since my little humble Brisbane event last year. And what I'm hoping is that I'm wrong in my statistics. And secondly, what I'm hoping is that other HIV positive people are going to go and do bigger and better and higher medals and records than I've done.
Well, let me just say, Stephen, that you are an example of the mantra of ultra cycling to innovate, adapt, and overcome in so many, and about 5 different levels. and we certainly admire you. We've followed you, and you've been a good supporter of what we've been trying to do, and we appreciate that a great deal. So we're just so glad to have a chat with you today.
Thank you.
It's Monday morning, I believe, over in Australia. It's Sunday evening here, and I believe you looks like you're in your office. Are you? And
I am. Yeah.
Ready to go to work.
Yeah.
You
I'm already here.
You getting ready to sue somebody? Are you? Or
I'm ready to give some forthright advice. Let's put it that way.
Keep somebody from being sued, perhaps. Well,
that's right.
That's really great, and I really hope maybe we could meet once again. And
there is no doubt whatsoever that RAM remains a very, very major component of my cycling life and my own world. I'm very, very fortunate. I think that I have the only motor vehicle in Australia that has the windscreen banner at the top of the windscreen called Race Across America. And I really, really quite enjoy that. I also do informal seminars in Australia for people wanting to do the Race Across America. And we've been able to get previous Australians who've been to Race Across America beforehand and so forth. And I'm really looking forward at some stage to come to time stations 41 and 42 and catch up again.
Well,
I'm very grateful for today.
And we'll be there. And if this thing they put here in my chest keeps working, I probably will be there too. And
I look forward to that.
That's another miracle of modern medicine. Each one of us have experienced in some sweet way. Listen, our best to Brian.
Thank you.
We hope that we will see you. It's so good to catch up with you, Stephen. So good.
I'm very, very grateful, and I really appreciate the support very, very much. So thank you, Lee, and I wish you and the Heartbeat all the very, very best as well. Heartbeat is good.
Yeah, it just keeps pecking away. Every time I take my pulse, it's just right there where it's supposed to be. So, anyhow,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.